Well, hey class, welcome to Old School Math. Today I wanted to give you an overview of our unit over systems of equations. The big I can statements for this unit are as follows. I can solve a system of equations by graphing, using elimination, and by substitution. We're going to cover all three of those in depth, specifically the graphing. I know it might have been a while since you have graphed, so I've got a intro video on graphing if you want to go back and review that. We're going to be looking at graphing three different ways. One by hand, another using a TI-84 calculator, and another we're going to be using Desmos.com. All three are great ways to solve systems of equation. We're also going to be looking at elimination and substitution. Know that any of these three methods will work for solving systems of equations. We're going to get really good at solving systems of equations, and we're going to hop into systems of inequalities. They work very similarly in that you're still going to be graphing some lines, but instead of just lines and finding an intersecting point, what you're going to be doing there is finding a region that works, and number three, using systems of equations to solve real-world problems. This unit is packed with real-world applications, and so I would not be doing this unit justice if we didn't take a look at those. We're going to talk about these in a little bit more detail though. So in Algebra 1, you started learning about variables. You had to solve an equation that maybe included just one variable, or you might have had to graph lines where you had x and y, finding coordinate pairs and finding slopes and whatnot. When we talk about systems, we're actually dealing with two or more equations that work together to satisfy some situation. These will usually have one solution in terms of an x and y coordinate pair, but sometimes they will have no solutions or infinite solutions, and we'll get into that in this unit. So if you're wondering why it's usually one solution, stay tuned and we'll learn. Now, I talked about this a little bit already, but there's a couple great ways to solve systems of equations. By graphing, we're going to be looking at by hand using a graphing calculator, and I'm using the TI-84. If you have something different, the process will be pretty similar. And by using Desmos. If you've never used Desmos, after this video, hop on Desmos.com and just play around with it. It's a really, really great online graphing calculator. We're also going to be looking at the substitution method and elimination method. And these two are a little bit more involved than maybe graphing is. But depending on what method, you can use any method to solve a system of equation, but your equations might lend themselves better to graphing or to substitution or to elimination. Really, the reason that most teachers show all three methods is you might have one that you prefer, one more than another, or you might have a method that's faster for you. And if you're taking the ACT, we know that speed is necessary. When we get into inequalities, they'll look a lot like systems of equations, but instead of having equal signs in them, we'll have greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to signs that we'll have to work with. That's the big exception here with the inequalities. You can solve these by hand, but we're just going to look at solving systems of inequalities, by graphing, because the graph will show a shaded region that overlaps. When we look at this overlapping shaded region, those are all of the solutions to our system of inequalities. So our system of inequalities, unlike our systems of equations that will likely just have one intersecting point and one solution, our systems of inequalities will have multiple solutions. The last big thing that we're going to look at in this unit is linear programming. Now, linear programming takes everything and it kind of puts it together. This is an extension of systems of inequalities where you'll have to set up inequalities for real-world problems and real-world situations. It's used to find optimal solutions to problems. So let's say that you have a sports team and you're trying to sell season tickets and you want to choose a couple different tiers. You can use this to figure out how many seats you have, how many of these types of tickets you want to sell and these types of tickets you want to sell in order to maximize your profits as a business. We'll utilize constraints for this in that situation I just told you about. Of course, you wouldn't sell negative tickets and you don't want negative profits, so we might set some constraints there on our X and Y axes. In all these use inequalities, and we'll graph inequalities with these, we will be looking at the intersection points from our different inequalities, substituting those back into equations there, and seeing which gives us the best solution to maximize, for that situation, profits for our sports team. But you could use this for many different situations. What's the optimal diet for me if I'm wanting to get my carbs and my proteins and my healthy fats, right? Or balancing proteins and calories. You could do something like that with it. There's lots of different applications for linear programming. And like I said, this is a nice culminating point at our unit because we can tie in linear inequalities, we can tie in systems of linear equations, and it's a good real-world application for this. Hopefully this has given you a good overview of what this unit is all about. There's going to be a playlist for systems that looks like this, graphing by hand with a TI-84 calculator and with Desmos. I want you to watch all those at the same time or on the same day. You might prefer one method over another. Keep in mind that the 84 calculator is going to be acceptable to use on the ACT where Desmos will not be. The substitution and elimination method, and then we'll do a little assessment over these. We'll do some applications and some word puzzles. I think those will be a lot of fun, kind of get your brain thinking about some real world applications here. Then we'll look at graphing inequalities and some linear programming to round out the unit. Guys, thanks for checking out this video. Stay tuned. I'm looking forward to getting into this unit with you all, and I know we're going to have a lot of fun with it. If you want to go ahead and subscribe to get notifications when new videos come out, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, thanks for checking this out. Thanks for watching.